Is it possible that a single run of Lewis Hamilton laps has completely changed Ferrari's future in Formula One? Today we tell you why the Fiorano shakedown was much more than a simple technical test. Ferrari chose January 22, 2026 not only to present its car to the world, but to try something much more ambitious: recover its competitive soul. That morning, when Lewis Hamilton fired up the SF-26 for the first time at Fiorano, the private Maranello circuit was not simply a test site. It was the altar where months of technical redesign, key strategic decisions and expectations that weighed tons were honored and also put on trial. The atmosphere was tense. It was drizzling, the sky was overcast and the track was slightly wet, but that didn't stop anything. What surprised many was the team's decision to activate the new active aerodynamic system from the first lap. It is not common practice, much less in a shakedown. Typically, a conservative approach is preferred, with neutral configurations and without forcing complex components. But Ferrari did the opposite. They allowed Hamilton to use from the start the two modes of the new moving wing system: the straight mode and the curve mode, which replaced the traditional DRS under the new 2026 regulations. This seemingly simple decision reveals something profound. Ferrari is confident in its concept. They are not testing if the car holds up. They're testing how quickly they can weaponize it. Hamilton, for his part, did not treat the car like a museum piece. He pushed it from the first corner, managing balance in wet areas, evaluating the response of the revised suspensions and analyzing how the hybrid system behaved under varying loads. In 5 laps, the SF-26 had already displayed more useful information than many of its predecessors had in weeks of testing. The transition between aerodynamic modes was fluid, without any surprises. The power delivery of the new hybrid system, with its 350 kilowatts MGUK, a figure never before seen in the category, behaved with surgical precision. Thermal management was stable. And perhaps most importantly, the correlation between the runway data and the CFD and wind tunnel simulations was exact. There were no unpleasant surprises, no unexpected deviations. For the first time in years, Ferrari felt that its car on the track responded as on paper. But it wasn't all technical. What many didn't see or didn't fully understand was a seemingly trivial gesture by Hamilton. He pulled out his phone and recorded the sound of the engine. Not for Instagram. He did it as an engineer would do who knows he is witnessing something different. That sound wasn't just any V6 turbo. It was a mix between compressed energy and mechanical roar, a product of the symbiosis between internal combustion and electric propulsion. It was the cry of a new beginning. Fiorano witnessed something bigger than a simple debut. It was the scene where Ferrari, after years of frustration, first saw tangible signs that change was real. Not a promise, not a simulation, not words, data, real. And they all left for 5 laps in a drizzle with Hamilton at the wheel. That day, Ferrari didn't just test one car. His revolution began. When Lewis Hamilton returned to the garage after completing his run at Fiorano, what happened behind closed doors inside the Ferrari hospitality was as significant as what we saw on the track. Engineers began downloading telemetric data, reviewing dynamic behavior correlations, and plotting power delivery, temperature, and downforce curves. What they found not only matched the simulations, it surpassed them. The first to sit in front of the monitors, next to the analysis team, was Charles Leclerc. The Monégasque, who had watched the laps from the wall, expected solid figures, but what he saw was something else. The expression on his face changed from focused neutrality to a mix of surprise and intense concentration. It wasn't jealousy or worry. It was respect. Engineers showed him 3 fundamental parameters in which the SF-26 exceeded expectations: the thermal efficiency of the engine, the stability of the hybrid system under rapid load changes, and the smoothness with which the new chassis supported aerodynamic transitions without traction losses or erratic responses. Vasseur, for his part, understood that this was not a typical pre-season. It was not a year of adaptation. It was a concrete opportunity to transform Ferrari from within. The SF-26 wasn't just fast. It was solid. It was coherent. And above all, it was in the hands of someone who knew exactly how to extract every millimeter of its potential performance. That internal impact was not an isolated moment. It was the turning point. From that day on, within Ferrari there was no longer any talk about whether the car was competitive. The conversation changed. Now there was talk of how to maintain that performance. How to evolve without breaking what finally seemed to work. Fiorano had not only validated a machine. He had given confidence to a team that had been searching for it for years without success. The story of the SF-26 and its surprising performance at Fiorano cannot be understood without going back to a key episode that occurred weeks before, far from the spotlight and media enthusiasm. It was in December 2025, during post-season testing in Abu Dhabi. There, while most teams were closing their year with data collection and evaluations of young drivers, Ferrari had a different mission: to expose the hidden wounds of the SF-25 and test whether its new concept could survive in real conditions. What Ferrari brought to Yas Marina was no ordinary test car. It was a mule car, an experimental mule, a modified version of the SF-25 with multiple components of the new SF-26 camouflaged under the old bodywork. Among these elements were an early version of the active aerodynamic system, a revised suspension, a different battery configuration, and above all, a chassis architecture designed to evaluate extremes of vertical loading. And it was precisely in this context where the figure of Lewis Hamilton changed the Ferrari narrative. His previous experience at Mercedes had given him years of experience with advanced analysis processes, real-time telemetric reading, and technical, not emotional engineering feedback. And that was exactly what he applied. During a high-speed run, Hamilton detected something that, incredibly, had gone unnoticed all season: an irregular pattern of aerodynamic bounce at speeds above 280 km/h. What initially appeared to be a ride height oscillation typical of ground effect cars, turned out to be a partial collapse of the flat bottom structure under maximum aerodynamic pressure. It was not a suspension problem. It was not simple porpoising. It was a structural deformation that destabilized the entire car in a straight line and caused a subtle but constant loss of control at high speeds. The way in which Hamilton communicated this finding was just as important as the finding itself. He didn't phrase it as a pilot's complaint. He broke it down with engineering precision. He pointed out the exact moment in the loading curve where the car lost rigidity, related that point to telemetry data in the areas of maximum compression of the flat bottom, and proposed, but did not suggest, a complete re-evaluation of the geometry of the chassis anchors. This analysis was an earthquake within the Maranello technical department. What Hamilton had identified in days was a structural defect that had been hidden between layers of seemingly normal data throughout the 2025 season. No simulator had detected it. No pilot had reported it clearly. And yet it was there. It was the root of the instability in fast corners, the loss of rhythm under full load, and occasional overheating in the rear axle. All symptoms that the team had attributed to other partial causes. The reaction was immediate. Ferrari stopped any attempts to adapt the SF-25 for the new regulations and focused all its energy on redesigning from the ground up. The SF-26 chassis was reconfigured with a new reinforcement material in the critical flex zone, the structural supports of the middle part of the car were redesigned, and the aerodynamic flow of the ground was corrected to avoid uneven loading in high-pressure zones. But the most telling thing was what this episode made clear. The hiring of Lewis Hamilton had not been just for his speed. They had brought someone who could see what others couldn't, to translate sensations into data, to find technical cracks before they become breaking points in the middle of the season. Thanks to that diagnosis in Abu Dhabi, the team arrived at the Fiorano shakedown with much greater confidence. They knew that the deepest problem from the previous cycle had been identified, addressed, and corrected. And when the SF-26 maintained its stability in similar conditions where the SF-25 collapsed, the reaction was not celebratory. It was validation. They had done the right thing. They had listened to the right person. And they were ready to start a new era with a solid foundation. The creation of the SF-26 was neither a hasty act nor a simple evolution of the previous car. It was a planned break with the technical philosophy that had doomed Ferrari in the ground effect era. Unlike previous cycles where the design was guided by immediate emergencies, this time a long-term logic was imposed. Build a platform that not only worked from the beginning, but also had structural room to grow. The real architect behind this change was Loic Serra, the engineer who came from Mercedes to take over as chassis technical director. Serra didn't bring a magic solution, he brought something more important, a process. His work philosophy moves away from the aerodynamic maximalism that marked Ferrari's DNA in recent years, and approaches what he defines as functional simplicity. It is not about removing complexity from the car, but about preventing that complexity from blocking the ability to evolve. The SF-26 was designed with a modular architecture. This means that the car can receive extensive updates without compromising its structural balance or mass distribution. The version we saw rolling in Fiorano, labeled internally as Specification A, is not the final one. It is a base platform designed to validate aerodynamic, structural, and energy concepts. Ferrari already has an aggressive upgrade package planned for the first 6 races of the year, and that plan is only possible because the car has been built with that possibility in mind since its conceptual phase. Leave me in the comments what you think about all this.